Hello everyone, this is Sadhana Alangar, HL7's Director of Education, welcoming you to this session of DevDays 2020. I'm the host and I'm joined by Mike Brown, who is co-hosting this session, and our speaker is Jeff Reed from InterSystems. At this point, I'm going to turn over the program to Jeff. Hi, Jeff.
Hey there, thank you so much. And thank all of you for joining on this fourth and last day of FHIR DevDays. It's been a really exciting event. For the next 40 minutes or so, we'll be talking about building the next wave of healthcare applications with FHIR. And I lead product management at InterSystems. So really we see this wave as pervasive. It's an incredibly exciting time for digital health, both because all of those that are helping the first line in the pandemic feel a totally different sense of urgency, importance, and willingness to share, but because I think the trends towards telehealth and digital health overall are here to stay. So I'll be taking you through an overview and then 5 patterns that I see developers using as they build out new applications, and especially the next wave of healthcare applications. Before I do, I want to ask the audience, or you just ask yourself this question, because not only do we live in a remarkable time in the here and now, but if you look back over the last century and a half, or actually even a little bit less, even 120 years, our lifespan, average lifespan, has doubled. Our quality of health in general has gone way, way up. So which of these innovations would you give the biggest credit to? This is, by the way, a great dinner time conversation icebreaker, if you will. And really the answer is none of them, because our health was advanced more by clean water than anything else. And this underlied the last century of advances. The next century of advances, I would submit to you, are analogously going to be powered by clean data. And I think as developers, especially people who are working with FHIR and interoperability, you get this. The question is, will we really get there? Because our clean water problem persists. It's actually hard to have clean water for the whole planet. And the clean data problem, we're living in spades. And I could do an entire talk just about this, but if I just load and distributed it, spread all over the place, there is now so much data that it's overwhelming the cognitive capabilities of providers, of patients, of everybody. And the data is in demand for many, many purposes, not just directly providing care, but analysis, machine learning, drug discovery, certainly by payers. So these 3 things make healthy data really, really important. And InterSystems is focused, and we actually have a theme, if you will, around healthy data. So I want to show you that this is possible and give you a sense of who InterSystems is before we get to our patterns. Overall, in order to get at good, actionable healthcare data, there's a variety of things you guys as developers and also your customers and our customers, which are across the spectrum of healthcare, really need to do, and you can read them here. InterSystems is a really neat company to work for because we have this unique breadth. We'll really be talking about development technologies and some of the solution components that we package up to make it easy to build cool things. But we also provide a unified care record that's used in health information exchanges around the entire world. We also provide a, which is called FHIR, by the way, and we provide a EHR system called TrackCare, which is similarly used both by private and public health worldwide. So we have a lot of experience in this domain, and the domain is getting broader and broader. So we have as customers at InterSystems people across this whole spectrum. For example, I'll just show some names. If you're familiar with Epic, every instance of Epic is powered by InterSystems technology inside as the operational data store. We work with 8 of the 10 largest providers in the US, but worldwide, the NHS, the Scottish Health System, the VA, there's a providers all around the world, small and large. Similarly with payers, with medical device providers, with lab suppliers, with HIEs, and increasingly with life sciences and pharmaceutical companies as well. So if you had not heard of InterSystems before, this gives you a sense of the breadth and the experience we have in healthcare. The company's 41 years old, and the majority of the business that entire time has been with healthcare. And we're very happy to have been recognized continually for both strong products and strong customer support. So maybe that gives you a sense that InterSystems has been really involved in the last wave of healthcare applications. And this next wave of healthcare applications clearly is about FHIR and also about other things. I won't talk much about the cloud, but our customers are deploying their solutions increasingly in the cloud. And many of our quick pop-up installations that happened in response to the COVID-19 pandemic have gone live very quickly because of the cloud. And you can't look anywhere in the software industry without seeing AI and machine learning. And I'll talk a little bit about that and how it relates to FHIR. As a high-level perspective, we've been deeply committed to FHIR for quite some time. Many of you may know Dr. Russ Leftwich, who is our FHIR evangelist and also serves on many of the committees. We have built into our software stack a very comprehensive FHIR support, and we use that both in developer products, which is what I'll be talking to you about today, but also in our components and pre-built healthcare applications. We also have what has proven to be a very powerful thing with FHIR, the ability to transform data back and forth to older protocols, whether it's HL7, 2.5 or other protocols. So you can read really what our strategy is. We're aiming to provide an excellent platform for you guys as developers that makes it easy for you to work with FHIR, extend FHIR, because we're increasingly seeing country variants, custom extensions, things of that sort, and FHIR is designed for that. So we expect developers need that, as well as some of the areas that I'll be talking about of analytics on FHIR, bulk data, ML, etc. I'll be mostly talking about technology and applications for the rest of this time, but I want to give you a sense of where I'm coming from, which is the product specifically that we build for builders is called InterSystems Iris. And we have a healthcare specific variant of it called Iris for Health. InterSystems Iris includes a very high performance multi-model database. That's the next generation of what some of you may know as Cache, which is a product we've had on the market for quite some time and still support and maintain. We also have a built-in interoperability subsystem that is the next generation successor of our Ensemble product, that, if you're familiar with that. We have included built-in analytics in the form of BI, natural language processing, and now machine learning. And the idea is that as a developer, you can focus on your application and not on integrating in these multiple piece parts. InterSystems Iris technology is used in lots of domains outside of healthcare. For example, 40% of the New York Stock Exchange transactions are run on InterSystems technology. We have a lot of customers, large customers in the capital markets business, but also supply chain, manufacturing, and retail. And those domains are sometimes, frankly, a little bit ahead of healthcare with respect to their requirements and deployment demands and, for example, cloud deployment. That's been a benefit to our customers in healthcare, is that we have a battle-hardened platform that they can use, on which we've added healthcare-specific protocols and models. Now, if you want to get more into this hands-on directly, we have a site, and you can just take a picture of this slide, and the QR code will take you there. That is a getting started site for InterSystems Iris for Health, with a lot of materials. There's a subsite that we have been providing for health hackathons, including we were a sponsor of the MIT COVID-19 hackathon last weekend, but also for the morning here at FHIR DevDays. And those are templates that you can use. We'll keep them going for anyone that wants to use them. And in that is a complete FHIR stack, including a FHIR repository that supports everything you read here. And I'll be talking about how that's been used by our customers and the patterns that might interest you or inspire you as you go to build your applications. Okay, so the first of those 5 patterns is about interoperability. And obviously, the I in FHIR is interoperability. But we very often see application providers that want to base things in FHIR, but need to talk to lots of other legacy systems. And the pattern is to have InterSystems Iris for Health use the built-in FHIR stack and the built-in transforms to other protocols, potentially extend them if you have your own, let's say, custom resources or needs, but then build the application as a native FHIR application and then be wired up to a wide variety of, let's say, HL7 2.5 speaking systems, because although FHIR is being adopted very quickly, A lot of what's out there is still not yet FHIR and still won't be for probably a decade. To give you a sense of what this is like, this is a screenshot from our visual trace that lets you dig into the messages between systems. And you can see on the right that this is an HL7 message. And there's a very simple flow that simply converts from HL7 to FHIR R4. So as an application developer, you can focus on the logic, the business, use FHIR, and then spread that more widely. Now, one example of that is a company called Guerbet. Guerbet, if you have not heard of them, is really the leader in contrast imaging. If you, God forbid, go into for heart surgery, you will get a dye, radioactive dye, injected, and the imaging system will watch your blood flow both diagnostically and also during surgery. And Guerbet has a pretty neat line of devices for injection. Along with that, they need to have software that controls and manages the injection, for which they've built on Iris for Health. And as you can see here at the bottom, there's a variety of clinical systems, such as the EHR, the EMR, a variety of imaging systems that are devices not made by Guerbet, or a PACS for image archiving. And then they have a set of injectors, which are devices they do build that, of course, go along with barcode readers in clinical settings with remote access. So they've essentially used InterSystems Iris for this interoperability and also to store their data, because it's a multi-model database, and provide analytics both in bulk and also on an individual basis and follow up. And that allows them to tailor in to, for example, give you a specific dose based upon your weight, your body mass index, and your clinical history. I've had the pleasure of working with the Guerbet development team, which is based in Paris, as well as a lot of their deployment teams in Connecticut here in the States. And I'm really honored to have been able to help them. When I ask, what do they get? They come up with really one word, which is speed. And speed shows up in different forms. Speed to value, because they were able to build this application quickly. It's hosted in Microsoft Azure, as well as on-prem, so you would call that a hybrid deployment. Speed in scaling up to large volumes of data, to deployment of many hospitals has been very important, and speed of connecting up to the various systems in their customer settings has been really important. And their the head of their development group has very nice things to say, right? That InterSystems, according to him, provides the fastest route to all the data they need. So that's really what I live for, is to build cool things that help people. And hopefully that pattern gives you a sense of what you could build by working with FHIR and extending to beyond FHIR to what you might consider legacy protocols. The second pattern that I'll talk about, I'll just touch on briefly. It's FHIR with a combination of API management. And I'll talk about it briefly because I have a colleague, Dr. Pat Jamieson, who has a talk in about an hour, well, about 2 hours. here at FHIR DevDays, and I highly encourage you to go to that. It's not being recorded, but it's very hands-on with exercises that we're publishing on open source software that you can use. But because FHIR is REST-based, and API management grew up with REST-based protocols, it's a good combination. And the InterSystems API Manager, which is a component of InterSystems Iris for Health, so there's no additional cost to license it or use it, provides sort of everything you'd expect in full lifecycle API management. From the management side, you can see statistics, you can see who's using what APIs with what methods. You can control throttle traffic, split traffic. It has lots of plugins for different forms of security and authentication and transformation and logging, etc. From the developer perspective, there's a development portal that allows you to work with API first approach. And that's catalog. You can build your application off of the APIs and then publish your APIs for other people to use. Along with this, we have created an open API spec for FHIR R4 based off of our capability statement so that you can get going really quickly and get applications running. There's a stub code in the language of your choice, as well as just an interactive thing that lets you explore the data and explore the API. So that pattern, I think, is really powerful and really important, and I'd encourage you to get a patch session at 2:45. The third pattern I want to talk about is about machine learning and integrating machine learning into healthcare applications. For the last decade or so, until probably year and a half ago, most of the AI applications you saw in healthcare were in research. And frankly, the vast majority still are. But they're becoming much more accepted, both in operational contexts like hospital workflow to reduce length of stay or predict where they should intervene to reduce readmissions, things of that sort, as well as in clinical formats. And there's three barriers that we see to adoption at our customers. The first is a skills gap. Most developers have a really steep learning curve to really get deep with machine learning. And that's an issue for developers, it's an issue for their employers, and the stable of machine data scientists is very limited. The second is the transition from development to deployment for machine learning is actually quite different than the traditional application development. And often people build in one machine learning environment and then redo it to make it deployable. Certainly less than half of the ML models built in healthcare make it to production. We just did a survey with IDC that was more like 30% made it to production. And that's a big gap that's really caused both by mindset and culture and tools. And last but not least, there's a move to automate. There's some amazing AutoML tools where you use machine learning with lots of compute power on machine learning. Pick features by choosing all possible features and learning which ones work best. Choose algorithms by running lots of algorithms in a sort of bake-off. That's called AutoML. But the issue today is that these are out of the reach of ordinary developers. And InterSystems has built and is just come out with a new facility called IntegratedML. And the whole goal of it is to put machine learning into the hands of SQL developers. If you know how to work with SQL, you'll be able to work with machine learning directly, and you can also do it right where your data lives, which reduces deployment problems. I'll give you a couple of quick examples of that. One, on the left, you can take directly from our Getting Started site that I pointed you at earlier. There's code that you can work with that we've open sourced. There's some training steps. There's a video if you just want to sit back and relax and watch something that is applied to readmission. And you can typically beat a LACE score quite handily with relatively simple machine learning done in situ. The other is an example that is using AI to predict breast cancer. My office happens to be right next to MIT, and there's a lot of work there that's really pioneered predicting breast cancer really early on. And you'll see, in fact, there was a talk here on Tuesday about getting labels and images in FHIR. And once you have those, you can use IntegratedML to work with them. What it really looks like as a developer is this. You're working in SQL. This is a screenshot of my favorite SQL editor, it's Squirrel. And just select star to see the whole data set. Often these are many, many rows. This happens to be, for simplicity, all in one table, but you could be, anything you can put in a select statement, a join, a materialized view, etc., to look at the data. And IntegratedML is very simple. It's a handful of additional DDL statements, of additional verbs that we put in SQL and tried to make very natural. One of them is predict, create model, in which you are saying, okay, dimension this model, here's the kind of data that I have, and you give it a table or anything that looks like a virtual table, right? You can, again, the from could be anything you can express in SQL, and you tell it what you want to predict. The second step is to train the model. And you can actually train the model on different data than you'll use in production if you wish. There's a lot of flexibility, but we wanted it to be really easy to use right out of the box. So that's all you have to say is train the model. The model already knows what the table is, already knows what you're trying to train, and there you go. The third step is to use a verb we added, which is predict. And you can use that in various ways. So now you have a model, it's directly against the data that you have in your application, and now you can use predictions. So here would be a simple thing, top 50 that are predicted as, and you're comparing the prediction to the actual diagnosis. And that's a way to eyeball and see if the model worked well. We also have a validate keyword I'll talk about in a minute. So you're not just eyeballing things. But here's a select in the middle where you're looking at predictions and the probability of a malignant tumor, and then ranking according to that. So these are the most likely malignant tumors, and you could use that to prioritize patient outreach, things of that sort. And the third is a simple one-shot prediction. I now have an image, it's got these measurements. What's the prediction? Is that benign or malignant? So this gives you a quick sense of IntegratedML. I mentioned that there is a validation built in for that. We've built in as well a set of AutoML providers, one that we've built out of open source that sort of a black box, you don't have to change any knobs, one that is uses open source H2O framework where you have all of the knobs you could possibly want. And the third, which is sort of the best commercial offering from a company called DataRobot that also provides training, gives you consulting data scientists, and really helps you through the data science parts of it. So if you'd like to know more, it's the same site I showed you. We also happen to have a developers contest coming up in less than a week. And if you want to participate in that, you can just go to this site. It's open to all, and there's cash prizes, and it's a lot of fun. So I've talked about 3 patterns so far. I'm going to just rush quickly through 2 more. One is a pattern we see about multi-role, multi-organization collaboration. Certainly we see a lot happening between providers and payers, or providers and pharmaceutical companies and payers, and that's why we're a founding member of the Da Vinci Project. We see a lot happening really across payers, providers, and patients, where you have different views of the same data. And of course, the 21st Century Cures Act opens up some new amazing possibilities for developers. It's a patient-centric consent, which means you can build applications that patients use with their own data, and that a patient can give you permission to work with their data for other purposes. And I'll highlight a customer of ours called RxMX that does this. They are basically looking at the complex medicines across the patient and provider, and they needed a solution to this integration problem of data coming from many, many places, as well as something that provided high performance, built-in reports, etc., in order to build something that, as you can see here, has apps for patient specialists and primary care and nurse portals, etc. They also used this InterSystems Iris for Health. Parts of these are very similar to the Guerbet example about connecting to all kinds of things, but they also used the much more real-time approach for alerts and security that allows you to get at patients as well as providers. And a very nice quote that you can read from Ben Rhodes there. They're very happy to deploy using our containerized approach and Kubernetes. Okay, so one last pattern, and we may have limited time for questions, but we also have the channel available on an ongoing basis. And the 5th pattern is really about medical images. And there's an amazing amount of information in those images. I talked about the breast cancer example earlier, but I'll highlight a customer of ours called Canon Medical Systems, and they've built what they call a clinical cockpit for radiologists. If you're familiar at all with it, the lingua franca is DICOM, and DICOM is a horrible file format for machine learning. So you need to unpeel all the metadata in that image, transform the data itself to something like PyPy or one of the formats that you can then use with 3D machine learning image algorithms, and use that in a cockpit and an app. So it's really cool thing to work with, quite exciting. It's been, they're based out of Tokyo, but also have a strong research development group in Europe. So I would check that out, especially in the COVID times. We're also seeing lots of applications that are trying to help with this pandemic. This is one that you'll find on our developer community as an example that is looking at lung x-rays of pneumonia and trying to determine if that's likely to be COVID-related pneumonia. Okay, so we have just finishing up in the last couple of minutes here, a reminder that we've gone across 5 patterns, all of which I'm taking from InterSystems customers, so they're all using InterSystems Iris for Health in different ways to connect across systems, both FHIR and legacy protocols, to combine FHIR and API management, to use that data in machine learning as well as in more pedestrian analytics, to connect across organizations and across different roles, and then to work specifically with images. So we're very happy that we've had so many application companies relying on us to provide their platform, and I hope we can be of use to you guys. So if you like to know more, there's a great getting started site. It's a free sandbox. We have a developer edition, which is free, which you can download directly from the Docker store. We have listings in all the major cloud marketplaces, as well as people that can help you get up and going and developing with FHIR, the next generation and the next wave of healthcare applications. So thank you very much. We have a couple minutes left for questions. One is, and I'll answer them in audio and then put some follow up through the app. Camilla asked, is V2 to FHIR translation being done? How? Whether we're using the community spreadsheets or custom code. So the answer, Camilla, is neither. We have built our own transforms that use the InterSystems stack, and we have a studio that allows you to do your own transformations. That's part of our interoperability subsystem. So you're starting from pre-built transforms, and then you're tweaking them if you have, for example, if you want to change the mapping of what goes to what resource, or if you have custom resources and therefore custom extensions and in V2. I'm looking for any other questions in the app. There's one that says, how much of the FHIR spec do you support? It's by Nikolai. So we do support a lot of, but not all of the spec. I would just say go look at our capability statement rather than me trying to run through it. I did show a slide early on that I'll try to bring up again. Where certainly all the core resources are there. We have also, for example, the NHS extensions for the UK, and much, much more. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much. And I look forward to getting to help you guys build really cool applications using FHIR. Enjoy the rest of FHIR DevDays.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you so much. That was a very interesting presentation. Thanks, Mike, for helping me. This was a very well-attended session. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. See you soon in the next session. Bye, everyone. Bye, Mike. Bye, Jeff.
Bye-bye.